Freedom versus control, a power struggle that we have seen throughout the millennia that is manifested in our stories across places and times. How does one find freedom in a corrupt system, in an institution that prioritizes power over liberty? In today's episode of the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, we're going to be looking at one of the most acclaimed films of all time, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Adapted from the popular book, this is one of two films to win the Big Five Academy Awards. This includes Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Lead Actor, and Best Lead Actress. And today, we are going to wrestle with some of the tensions that this film brings out about how we treat those in our society who need help, who feel like they can't belong, and ultimately what it means to be human and not dehumanize those we don't understand. And if you're ready for this deep dive, then let's take a glimpse into the psyche of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Welcome to the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, where we analyze stories and films that help us make sense of life. We are four friends with backgrounds in storytelling, filmmaking, teaching, and narrative therapy. Join us on our quest towards telling and living our stories more meaningfully. I'm Derek Hatch.
My name is Nick Natal.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joseph Wilson.
I'm Jason Lynn.
All right, so we are at the finale of our retreat picks. And so I've gone, Nick's gone, Joseph's gone, and now we are here at last with Jason's pick. And so, Jason,
sir.
I'd love to know, why did you pick this movie?
I had a bird in the name. That wasn't the main reason. Although, big draw. But unlike the other, huge draw. Unlike the other guys, I didn't watch this movie before I put it on. Everyone else had watched their movie. I hadn't watched my own. And yet, when I was thinking about this, I couldn't get it out of my mind that this is one that we should play and watch together. And I wasn't sure why, but I was thinking about other options, and I definitely don't know a lot of movies that the other guys haven't seen, so there was that. But I just felt like this was the movie that I wanted to pick, and there were some things that I kind of had an impression of what this movie was about.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to see that out for myself. So I was really curious about it because my dad had seen it, and I'd seen bits of it when he was watching it, and I knew how it ended.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was really curious, and I'm very content with that pick.
Yeah.
And I could go on about why I picked it, but I'd like to save that a little bit for the end. I want to hear what you guys initially think about it.
Let's go and do the letterbox real quick, and then we will get our first reactions.
Yep.
Letterboxd.
If he's crazy, what does that make you? While serving time for insanity at a state mental hospital, implacable rabble-rouser Randall Patrick McMurphy inspires his fellow patients to rebel against the authoritarian rule of head nurse Mildred Ratched. And man, is she Ratched. So let's go ahead and get our initial reactions real quick. It's interesting because I just saw this for the first time like a couple weeks ago. So this is almost for me like a first reaction because it's still very fresh. I haven't had a lot of time to sit with this movie. And the second time I picked up way more than I did the first time. But this is like top tier, like masterpiece. Like I went in thinking like, oh man, is this going to be overrated? And no, it's incredible. I'm really excited to talk about it today.
I've got first reactions too, actually, but I'll go after all yours.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen this before either.
No, this movie is like really an inspirational movie, to be honest. I really like the message. Well, the message that I got from this. And it's really to not allowing institutions to destroy your unique personality or your unique characteristics or things like that. Yeah, and not just conforming to things.
I think I heard you say like the institution trying to crush the individual.
Yes.
That is such a good observation there.
I feel like even a cautionary tale of what that looks like when you continuously are oppressing a group of people.
Yeah.
And we'll get into spoilers and details of what that looks like, because there's a physical representation of what happens near the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie is good. I don't like Nurse Ratched. She's not
she's not your favorite?
She's not Autobot Ratched, so she just sucks.
Yeah.
Autobot Ratched.
Yeah. Autobot Ratched.
Omnicron Ratched.
Medical Officer Ratched. He died in the movie.
What about you, Nick?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. It was an interesting experience because I was able to identify with every character, including Nurse Ratched.
Mm.
So I saw myself in the patients. I saw myself in Jack Nicholson's character. And then there's time in my life where I saw myself as Nurse Ratched.
Wow.
So it reminded me of how the archetypes are very fluid.
Yeah.
And you kind of can move in and out of them. But the theme of this film, even within that system of oppression, I think the film teaches you that you have a choice within that system on how to act. And that system doesn't have the control over you that you think it does.
Yeah.
There's a few of the patients were in there on their own. They're choosing to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jack Nicholson,
Which is wild.
Yeah.
That was the
well, it's wild, but it's also a
True.
conversation we were having
Yes.
at the beach yesterday on how we choose our sin.
Yeah.
We just choose not to enter into the garden.
Yeah.
And those patients were choosing.
that's-
Some patients were more committed in that system. They needed more help.
Yeah.
But I think what Jack Nicholson's character, he taught them how to live despite the circumstance.
Yeah.
Well, he gave them a story to live into, because this is a huge narrative therapy movie in a lot of ways. Because the idea of people that are there by choice, that want to be there. There's something that we've talked about before called the normalizing gaze, which is essentially a narrative therapy where you have this almost unspoken standards in culture and society of what is considered like quote unquote normative behavior. And when you deviate from that behavior, you go one of two places typically. You either go to prison if it's like a criminal sense, like you break a law, or you go to a place like this, like a mental hospital, institution, whatever you want to call it. And the story is about these misfits that don't live up to the normalizing gaze in some way. Some of them actually do seem pretty rational, pretty smart.
Yeah.
But there's something about how they see themselves, how they've been taught to see themselves, that doesn't align, and they feel like they have to be in this place. All the while, you have Jack Nicholson's character, Randall, who's like this wild card because he's trying to use the system to get out of like a work prison.
Yeah.
And he's trying to manipulate within the system to try to almost like coast in a way until he gets released. But of course, he finds out that this is a whole different thing. He is not there by choice. Even though he thinks he's there by choice, they have deemed that he has to be there as long as they deem necessary. You have a degree of control that you surrender to any institution, for better or for worse. Like when you go to school, like university, college, you are surrendering some amount of rights to that institution. There are certain things you have to abide by. Same with church, same with where you work. That's part of society. But what this movie is exploring is in the mental health field. How do you ethically go about that? You've got people who choose to be there, people who are forced to be there. Who deems what mental health is?
I feel like society dictates that. It's a societal thing. And then but with that, society is so shaken loose in general that those normal things can continuously change throughout the year. So what's normal today could not be normal tomorrow. And when you allow, I feel like, that to dictate, when you're literally putting a house on sand.
Yes.
You're allowing the sand to dictate where you can be, where you can go. But when we do that, I feel like we're dehumanizing those people.
100%.
So
well, and that's why I've heard this before. I don't know how much credence or truth there is to what I'm about to say, but this movie takes place in 1963, but it was made in, I think, like 1975, like somewhere in the mid 70s. And the book was written too around that time in like 1963, like somewhere around there. This book / movie depicts, spoiler alert, obviously for this podcast, when Nurse Ratched is at her wit's end because she is trying to maintain control.
We're going there already.
Over this. Well, we're going to kind of bounce around topically because like I want this topic of mental health is so important here to talk about, but before we get to the other themes. So Nurse Ratched, who's the embodiment of this system, and she is the face of what in our society we have deemed proper mental health care to be, which is scary because She wants to have her thumb over these people. She wants to have that control. She's got like the ruler archetype. She's got the unhealthy version of that, like that's manifesting in this. But the strange thing is the system deems it's good.
Yeah.
The guy says she's one of our finest nurses. So the system rewards narcissistic, tyrannical behavior.
Or turns a blind eye to it, or doesn't enter in to see,
Yeah.
is this really here or not? They just say, oh, well, everyone looks complicit. Everything's going good. Things are calm. Things are peaceful. Yeah, she must be great.
And when she can't exercise that level of control that she wants,
She manipulates and uses trauma as a weapon against the inmates.
all these practices are things that like narrative therapy and narrative practice like stands against. Using your trauma, weaponizing trauma through personal relationship, because she knows the mom for Billy. And Billy is this young, impressionable man who believes that he has to be there.
Yeah.
There's also the practice of just the tight leash, right? And when there's any break in the routine, because that's what Randall is trying to do. He's trying to humanize, trying to give him a sense. But for her, like, this is a dehumanizing thing, like almost like a dystopian nightmare where the music's playing loud and she's got that still calm, collect voice like a HAL 9000.
I think
like
of Autopilot.
Or Auto, exactly. Like this is just the way things are. Then it gets more extreme using physical force. So like the electroshock and then eventually culminating in the lobotomy.
Yeah.
Now, what I was saying a few minutes ago, if I'm not sure if this is true or not, lobotomy was a practice that was utilized for a long time. But around the time that this book and movie were coming out, it was shedding light on what that practice actually was doing to people. And this is only like 50 years ago that we decided we shouldn't lobotomize people. Like, how insanely jacked up is that?
Yeah.
Like, in the course of thousands of years of human history, we just realized, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't go in and remove the parts of our brain that allow us to be human, because she wants docile, almost like obedient, like animals.
Well, that's exactly what a lot of serial killers wanted too. They lobotomized a lot of their people. Jeffrey Dahmer tried to do that and make pretty much sex slaves. So this is a institution that used to think that that is fine compared to a serial killer that also thought the same thing. So I feel like that is a very, very big revelation that we have these two different ideas. One is considered horrible, but that is exactly what we've been doing to other people.
Because if you could place that practice within a system, you can excuse it.
Yep.
Which is really jacked up.
I'm sitting here and I'm trying to remember what Nurse Ratched was like before she met Jack Nicholson's character, or in the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Because as I'm watching this is a competition between her and Jack Nicholson.
Absolutely.
She's trying to dominate him.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm not wondering how much does that spread over the entire workplace. So she's playing, like, let's just think about it.
Yeah.
She's playing music and her reasoning is, this is what you want, Jack, but there's another side here that they
it's weaponized compassion almost. Like she's trying to say like this is good for the people, but really it's good for what she wants.
Well, then so there's just nothing. There's nothing in her, because I just wonder, because she's
the other side of the coin.
She's competing against Jack Nicholson, and he is pushing her to compete even further. They're both playing a game, and they're both not really that innocent in themselves.
No.
Yeah.
So as we take that approach, the other side is interesting.
But I feel like that's a complacency, because again, let's think of it like if they were kids. Yeah, they need a routine, but if they're just inside of the classroom the entire time, we know as people that have worked with kids, that is not good. So now let's translate that to people that are suffering with mental illness. I can't really speak of it because I'm not. I am a doctor, but in the sense of there is a sense of it is okay to step out, but she's so stuck in it that she doesn't see that, and she's not willing to see that.
Well, and like her introduction, so to answer your question, Nick, like what is she like before she meets Jack Nicholson? I think one important thing to note is that in the opening scene with her is her dispensing medication. There are people coming to her because there is something that they feel like they're lacking, they need, and she is providing it to them. She is giving it to them, and they are not questioning it. In fact, my favorite moment of that scene is the guy who has it put it on his tongue, like communion. And it even has that language.
Here's your juice.
Here's your juice. Yes. And that moment to me is that this is almost like work has become her religion in a sense. And she feels like, just like the priest who gives the communion, right? Because that when you give that communion to somebody, it is a source of life. It is connecting you with the source of life. And it's meant to, like the body and the blood of Christ, like that changes you from the inside out. Like, and that is what I think she believes she is doing. And that is the scary part, is that I do think that she believes what she is doing is for the ultimate good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and I guess my first reactions to this movie, one, like Murphy is not like an aspirational character at
No,
all. Like
not
we
at-
hear why he's in for what he's in for. Like, what is it, 5 assaults and statutory rape? This dude's not
Of a minor.
15
yes.
years old.
And he's like, it's kind, it's all right. You would do it.
Hey man,
Like, no.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this dude is just following vice and pleasure, and it resonates with. We talk about archetypes, and they've actually won me over, guys. It used to be that when they talk about archetypes, I wouldn't really connect, but
Mhm.
we've been talking a lot this weekend, and I've been understanding the importance of it. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Anyways, he's just following pleasure, but there is something very important that he gives to these guys that are in the ward. And with Nurse Ratched, the scene that sticks out with me, which is before he gets there, McMurphy gets there, is she's in the group with them and she's talking through Harding's problems with his wife. And when they all just start getting completely out of control, she's just staring
Mm-hmm.
forward and her face is red. And it's just like, is this pain? Is she just dead inside? Has she been killed by this? Like, just being, I'm thinking, and it's something to wonder about, not something you can really state. Why did she start working here? Did she actually come in with a want to help and a desire to, be someone who can help people with mental issues and with problems? And did the system suppress and drain her just as much as the people? And she becomes complicit in the system.
Yeah.
And like, you're looking at a woman who is completely broken and she just continues to maintain it. And there's a security in this now. And because of the security of this system, something comes in to throw a wrench into the system, and that shakes it up for her.
Yeah.
And she's threatened. Her security is threatened.
Go ahead, Nick.
Also,
Go
that
ahead, Nick.
We
wrench,
all are ready to go.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
that wrench, just to be clear, that wrench is crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm getting there.
So nurse, this is what I think I'm trying to. When I asked you why is this not a 5-star movie,
I was just about to say this.
This I completely understand, because there needs to be more understanding of Nurse Ratched and her motivations and a backstory, because she's trying to gain order because Jack Nugas is nuts and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
When they say that, he is very dangerous.
Yeah. And so that's why I asked, is she turning into a villain as they compete against each other, or is she a villain from the start?
No, that's a great question.
And as they're fighting in that therapy session, I saw her as letting it play out. I saw her in that moment as patient. I was like, oh, like she could try and control this and can tell them how to be and fix them, but she's letting it play out, and they're actively learning in that moment, or if they're able to learn in that moment. So that's the most fascinating part.
And that's interesting. I do. No, I'm sorry, Derek. No, Derek, I do want to say it. So with that scene, from like when you talked about when we're backing up, since both of you said it, what I got from that was just, okay, we're just going to do the routine. This is what they do every single day. We have this conversation, something gets brought up, they go back and forth. It is what it is. I'm just going to step back and let that happen to control. That is, I feel like that is her sense of control.
Right.
I don't need to do anything at this point. I can just let it play out. And then we're going to come back here the next day, pain pills, all that stuff. Next day, they're going to argue with each other. That's what I got from it.
Very different
So
interpretation.
this is my
I'm just kidding.
my theory is that she lets it play out because it reveals it's almost like let it fall into chaos and then let her be the one to save the day, right? It's that messianic
complex.
It's that messianic complex where it almost shows their need for her because they can't keep it together, and then she comes in, and what you said is so right for me. Like, that is why, for me personally, it's not a 5-star, 10 out of 10 movie, is because I have a wife as a nurse. I know nurses.
Yeah.
And I know that this movie doesn't quite explore how that comes to happen, because I do think that, in just my experiences, a lot of people come to careers that are compassion and service oriented with a desire genuinely to want to help people. The problem, and again, Jordan Peterson talks about this as well, is that if you are going into a system where you are giving all the time, helping people, and you have not, pardon my language, if you don't have your shit somewhat together, and you're trying to do that, your shadow, your darker sides, the stuff that you have not dealt with, the trauma that you have not worked through, will come out in one form or another. And I think, again, Nurse Ratched, if she is this more ruler archetype that has a bent towards power and authoritarianism, and she has not dealt with that, which maybe she thinks she has, but when you encounter, I mean, we've all been teachers, so you have that student that brings out the worst in you.
I've been Nurse Ratched.
Yeah. I relate to that too. My first year as a classroom teacher, 4th grade, I had a student who drove me up the wall, so much so that I said something I have never said to a student in my entire career. And I said, I'm not going to say his name, but I said, boy, you need to sit down and shut up.
Appropriate.
Right.
And it was true. But my supervisor was like, you
can't be saying
probably shouldn't say that, because I felt really guilty like right after.
Yeah.
And kind of sucks to say that it actually worked. Like, he actually, like, him seeing me like that actually kind of worked. But that's horrible, right? I actually called and I had to apologize to his mom, and she's like, oh, I say it to him all the time. And I didn't feel so bad after that, because she was like, oh yeah, that's just another day.
That's why it worked.
What was that?
That's why it worked.
Yeah. But so there's a level of, when you're in that position and you haven't dealt with that, and that anger, right, will come out in some form, even if it's like perceived like controlled anger. We met those people who are really calm and collect, as they are absolutely exercising power and authority in a really abusive way. And it's terrifying.
But no, I do like that there's room to wonder about Nurse Ratched. I don't think having a big backstory on her would have made the movie better. That's my personal opinion. But no, it's really possible for the light to leave someone's eyes who came in with good intentions, and the passion died, or they found that the system didn't work. Jack Nicholson's character is not an aspirational one, because I want to point out that what he's doing is not, there's something important that he's bringing, but he's still causing harm.
Yes.
He is going way too far into one direction.
Yeah, well, he's the revolutionary archetype, unhinged in a way.
I was
like, he doesn't know how to rein it in.
There's another one in there too, and it's the Jester.
For him, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
And I really want, and so I'm going to get into part of why this is important for me
go
in
for
this. So it's this weekend that I'm realizing, one, what the archetypes even mean, and why I think they're important, or at least what they're showing me. And so these are the characters in the story that just seem to always be roles that are in stories passed down from generations, just as long as stories are told. And Joe and I even were finding out, which ones we lean towards the most. And it's been really helpful.
And I'm a lover and a warrior.
I'm a lover and a fighter.
Yeah.
I'm a lover and a fighter.
Anyways.
And so it's been really helpful to show what my proclivities are, what I tend to be weak in, and what my strengths are, and that's been really helpful. And I guess an archetype that's been very prominent in my life has been the Jester, which is humor, thrill-seeking, fun, joy, pleasure, and a lot of that has come vices and distraction. But that part of me had brought me out of of a depression that I had.
Mm.
It brought me out of just going through the same loop of today we do this and then we go home. I go and I do my homework. I'm in class. Okay, I have no friends, whatever, and I go home. And I did not know really how to relate to a lot of people. In high school I had a lot of friends, or a good amount of friends, but I didn't have much of a group. That didn't come till later in high school. But I had my friends here and here and here and here and here and here and they're from different groups. And I have a lot of individual friends. I'm not part of a group. I don't fit into any group. And a lot of people would, here we go. Here's the ward that I found myself in.
But
hold on,
go ahead, keep going.
So a lot of people would say, "Oh yeah, you like the way you think is really different." And sometimes a compliment. Sometimes it was like, "I have no idea how to understand you."
Yeah.
And there's a lot of being misunderstood and having to explain, and then still being met with raised eyebrows.
Sure.
And so that I really connected to in a lot. So that with the Jester, the thrill seeking, that is very much a part of me. And this movie is showing me that it is very important to show people this sense of adventure and of freedom and a better way to live, a more enjoyable way to live outside of just a routine and a system. But it's not sustainable.
So am I hearing you say that with your depression, when you were going through that, what pulled you out of it was being able to share these parts of yourself with people?
No.
Like I'm trying
that came afterwards. So what
I'm trying to understand.
Right. So to clarify, what pulled me out is an appreciation of the world around me, of what life had. And not in like necessarily like the vices that McMurphy has or the vulgarity of it. It was how beautiful everything was, how good it was to be with people, how good it was to be in the world that the Lord created. There's just such a thrill and a beauty to life, and things didn't have to be taken so seriously all the time. Like levity was really good, and it helped lift me off the ground out of where I was. And now I share that with people, and it's important. And I think it can be contagious in a really good way.
Absolutely.
But I cannot just keep living off of pleasure and escapism alone. It will not sustain. In this movie, it is not sustainable. It's going to crash and burn. That's all he's doing. That's selfish too. But man, when he takes them on the boat and they're fishing and there's just this open water and he said, "Hey, go take the wheel."
Yeah.
Like that was a really, really cool scene. And it meant a lot to me. And that it becomes for the guys in the ward.
It seems like to me with him, he maybe was that jester, but he found a sense of purpose because he has moments where he could escape. When he got the bus, he could have just pieced out and kept going. When
the window was with him.
Yes, and then when the window was open that night, you have that long look on his face where I think he's deciding I'm going to stay. And then even with the keys, he could have gotten out. Even the guy saying like put the keys that nobody screw that guy. Like he could have run.
He knocked him out.
But he had 3 opportunities where he could have escaped, and I think he chose not to. And I think it's because he is finding meaning in taking this jester side you're describing and channeling it into a revolution. Like I think he is bringing a revolution to this institution, and I think he's seeing that these people need him, which is interesting because that puts him on par with Nurse Ratched, because both these characters believe that they are needed, that these people need them. And I think that is why he stays, and I think that's why she stays
they're the same.
as well. Yes.
What's really interesting is that Nurse Ratched, the things she say are not 100% wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there is some truth in it, but there's a lot of suppression. There's no spontaneity. There's no, oh yeah, you know what? Let's try it this way. There's no hope. It's only this, and you're trying to take it away. And no, we're only going to do this. But people in the ward need security. Like they do. What this guy is crazy. He's breaking out. He's telling the other people how to break out. There's gambling. He's taking money from everybody.
I think he's responsible for that
for Billy.
Billy's death. Yeah.
Billy,
Well, because there's almost like a father-son relationship forming. Because like when he's gonna leave, I think he stays because of Billy, because he thinks there's something that he owes Billy. Like he sees him as this lost puppy of youth, and he has Billy like go into the room with like his kind of girlfriend. And it's really perverted, as you said, but it is like this rite of passage he's trying to offer Billy as like a father to a son, like crossing over to a man. And I think he feels like he needs to stay. But that also, again, because when you don't have your crap together, there are blind spots that you have. And I think that is his ultimate downfall.
Jack Nicholson isn't a aspiring character, but the inspiration that he's bringing should inspire us to bring. I feel like it should inspire us to inspire other people in a sense, like not like in a way that is positive. The way that he was bringing people together, that should be the inspirational thing, not him.
Yeah. So Nurse Ratched wanted peace and quiet and order, and that would help them. But Billy needed confidence and love. And brotherhood and community. They all need community and levity and confidence, but Mac doesn't have it together either.
Yeah.
Nurse Ratched and Mac both don't have it together, and they're bringing these things and only these things, they're not good. But together in balance with love and with the confidence that's being brought, but also with structure is important. And order is important. Together, these things are helpful, and these guys want help. They have problems, and they've acknowledged it because most of them were voluntary. That part hit me really hard. Because these guys are great guys, but they're in need of help.
They need help.
And they're coming to help, and they're looking for it, and they're not getting it. But maybe the fact that outside of this is so much worse, and that concept is so terrifying, being on their own and having to do it on their own, they choose this because this is secure. It's the same thing. It's suppressive, but they're safe from themselves.
It's Plato's cave in the sense of just like with the shadows. You take me out the cave and I see this world. I don't know anything about this world. I'm going back to my shadows.
Billy doesn't even want to leave.
Billy doesn't want to confront his mom.
What I liked the most, which was one of the more profound things, was Chief said that he's too small. Or he told Dad, you're just much bigger than me.
In context, Chief is probably like 12 foot.
He's the biggest character in the film. But they couldn't leave yet. They really couldn't make that choice yet because they're so small. And that's how Jack's character kind of built them up.
There's hope.
Well, that's the tragedy of McMurphy is I think Randall is trying to work within the system with the baseball game. Like he's trying to, there is an attempt to have a balance.
Yes,
and I do think even though they're really flawed characters, I do think the movie is taking Randall's side. Absolutely.
You tried at first and then it was like, no, you can't. You have to stick to the vote. But there are people.
It's so dangerous to take Randall's side.
But I do think the movie is taking his side, though.
It does.
You know?
But imagine if he waited the next day or the next time and got the 10 votes.
But he couldn't. In that moment, you see both of their flaws on display.
And impatient, and he just fights and lashes out, and it ruins any credibility he could have had. I still think he could have gotten out of there.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
By good behavior.
I agree.
Like he could have been like, "All right, stop fighting, stop trying to pretend that you're crazy."
He don't want to leave either.
No,
I don't know if he.
The same thing. He didn't want to leave.
He's found a community in here that he's an important part of, and he doesn't want to.
No, I think he just wanted to beat Nurse Ratched.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
I don't think it's the only reason. That's a very strong thing.
I think what's keeping him is. Because he wanted to leave. He was in the pool going, I'm almost out of here. He was trying to win. The competition was so interesting to me between those two. That was the core of the film. Not necessarily mental health. Though all those things are there. But the core was McMurphy and Nurse Ratched and their relationship and how that spilled over into how it affected the whole community as a whole.
And it was interesting watching this knowing that he wasn't going to win. Because no matter what he can do, there's one trump card that she's got. And her hand was forced. Because within what she's got, they're both got hands and they're playing this, they're playing that. But at the end of the day, like, he is in the system. He's not a part of it. He's not in the administrative part. and finally she plays the lobotomy card, and he's smacked down.
The interesting thing, the movie we just watched, The Way to Win, was to take off the belt.
Yeah.
And Jack Nicholson couldn't do it.
No.
Nurse Ratched couldn't do it. The victory that this movie poses is to smash the wall and
run.
Yeah, take the sink, smash the wall, and escape the system.
Yeah.
Just revolution.
Yeah.
And Jack couldn't win because not even on his mind at all was to face death.
Well, and with these two characters, again, the way they're pitted against each other, I think one thing that's really interesting with them is that they both are ultimately, it seems like they're trying to, like, you're right. Like, I think there is a sense of community that they both believe they're trying to do good. But I also think the problem is that they're both centering themselves in the middle of it.
Yes.
Like we talk about a narrative practice,
yeah.
being decentered yet influential.
Yeah.
So like decentering means that you have to put aside, when you're in a position of compassion and helping people, you have to put aside in that moment what you want or what you might think is best for the other person. So both of these characters do this. So Nurse Ratched, for example, will make conclusions about people. It's horrible counseling, horrible therapy she's doing. She's basically proclaiming like a diagnosis over. She's not allowing them to actually think for themselves. She's taking their words and telling them this is what you are. This is what she's trying to define them. Now, McMurphy is also doing the same thing in a way. He's saying like, and we like it because there's a goodness in that. He's trying to say like, oh, steer the ship, shoot the basket, like all these different things. But there's also like ultimately like, come on, put your hands up. But he just wants to watch the damn game. Like that's really what he wants.
What he wants, and he's using them for it.
Yes. And so that is where it's really fuzzy.
Yes.
And I do think that what you do with that is you have Nurse Ratched who says like, when they want to ship him away, they want to get rid of him. She's like, no, like I'll keep him.
Yeah.
The ultimate act of power there.
So I think it is the sense that they both are responsible because yes, Jack Nicholson could have left 3 times, but she also could have just let him go. No, we shouldn't allow other people's responsibility or our problem to be other people's responsibilities. He came here to you guys. He wasn't your responsibility to begin with.
Right.
You just send him back over to where he was. But it is that sense of there's still that I want to prove.
I want to beat him.
I want to
beat
dominate
him.
myself over it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to beat him. That's why I think she keeps him there. And the way to finally beat him is to lobotomy, like, right? Is to take away like the self, the soul, whatever you want to call it.
But she didn't, I feel like she still didn't technically beat him.
Yes. Why, Joe?
I'll say bigwig. Because Chief broke out. He broke out of the system. And like how Nick said, you literally have to smash it.
He became a myth.
Yeah.
Yes.
He became a
Yes,
myth.
He left his mark on the guys. 'Cause the guys are playing actual blackjack.
Yeah.
Well, it's jarring when you see like Chief saying like, I'm going to take him with you. Like they have a really close bond that they form.
Yeah.
And then he takes the pillow and suffocates him to death after the lobotomy.
He gave him his voice back because Chief was acting like he was dumb and lame.
They took Randall's voice away. And so Chief knows what that's like because I think the Chief's voice was taken away in that institution.
Yeah.
And he learns to bring it back through Randall. That's when he first talks, is when he says thank you, which I think is the best words words he could say.
The second one is juicy fruit.
Juicy fruit, yeah.
Juicy.
But
you son of a...
Yeah. But man,
there's all this speculation of, is Randall still here? Did he break out? I think the Chief knows that the myth of Randall is more important.
Yeah.
And so he kills the physical like shell of Randall that's left, and the myth of Randall lives on through his actions.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Think about that.
It's all these myths that our characters are inspiring at the end of the
Well, and there's almost like, because we have to keep in mind as well, like the book is actually written from Chief's perspective. He is the main character in the book.
That would have been
not
good.
Randall.
That's what I was thinking towards the end.
Yes.
I
Like it was for Chief.
And there is a lot that the original story has to say about Native American people. Like this is actually a really important theme here as well, because you have the Native Americans who have been oppressed by the institution and the system of the United States of America. Yes. And it's silenced their voice. It's made them They are strong people, but it's made them meek. Like they've not
literally been run out of their own lands. They've been literally pushed down to the brim of their own society. It's stuff like that.
And what is Chief doing? He's literally just pushing a broom a lot in the movie. Like he's not going anywhere, and he's just
shuffling and standing.
shuffling. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. He's just
walking down the court.
Yeah, he's just shuffling. So then when he finally kills Randall, it's the really jarring musically.
It's a Western. It turns into a Western.
Well, it almost even sounds tribal. Like it's almost like an initiation.
But it's also cut with these like loony sounds too.
Yes, absolutely. It's almost like there's something mythic happening, and the music is bringing that out. And it's almost like Chief is reclaiming his identity, his myth, through Randall's martyrdom, which is strange to think about.
Yeah.
And that, because he's taking him with him, and I think he's right. He is taking everything that Randall gave him that you cannot kill.
Yeah.
He is taking that with him when he jumps out the window and runs. The last shot of the movie is just him running into open country. I mean, heading to Canada.
He's going to Canada, baby.
Which also is interesting because the Native American no longer belong. They no longer have their home. They have been pushed out, and they have to go somewhere else to express that identity.
Yeah. Dang, that's good.
Yeah, I retract the ending. I think that makes it that frames it a whole lot.
To where it's on Randall's side, right? Where it
it does. No, the myth part.
Oh yeah,
where he now takes back his identity through the mythological aspect of
what
Randall's
he stands for, what Randall stood for.
So I think that was a more profound interpretation.
That's like how it was for Pinocchio. It's that myth.
People took the myth of Pinocchio and went with it. The Green Knight was the story of someone finding their myth, and Transformers was, in my opinion, from what I got from it, I think Transformers is the competing almost of different myths between those different sides, and trying to see like which way forward. How is the myth going to be told going forward? Is it going to be told according to the Decepticons or the Autobots, right? So all these picks, even this really grounded story, are ultimately. Man, it's amazing how God links this together. These are all stories about wrestling with the power of myth.
So I really want to kind of ground this real quick.
Yeah.
So the word myth to me, coming into this,
The Power of Myth is the book that me and Derek have been reading.
I know,
but like it's perfect.
but when I hear myth, I hear a false story. That's what myth means. Is false stories. Like for most of my life, it's like, oh, these were myths that were told.
Yeah,
that means it's
they're
a story.
Fake,
it's not real.
Fantasy.
So when other people are hearing us say myth, I don't know how much connection there is because I didn't feel much. But what I'm understanding, and help me if I'm wrong, is a story or like an ideal that helps us like live. When you're saying myth, what are you saying?
It's what Robert McKee calls capital T truth.
That which is like contradictory.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not.
So there's,
but from the connotation that, I'm looking for a practical definition because when you say absolute T truth, you're saying that a word that I've grown up to hear as a false story means truth, and so I'm trying to work and understand.
So
your meaning
what would you
it.
say is your definition of truth?
Of truth?
Yes. How would you define truth?
Oh man, let's just do another podcast episode. The absolute of something.
Okay.
Free from falsehood.
Okay. So let's explore that for a second. So there is truth in what we call like the objective fact.
Right.
Objective reality. So we are recording a podcast at 1:20 in the afternoon on a Sunday.
That's true.
Right? Like that is objectively true. That is what is happening right now. A lot of people, that's the only concept of truth that they have is just, did it really happen? It's like that video camera, like if it didn't actually happen like this, it's not true. And we need that level of truth for a lot of things in our society and as human beings. Capital D truth, as like Robert McKee and other story like enthusiasts talk about, is that it speaks to the truth of what it means to be human and what it means to exist in the world we live in. What these 4 stories that we've chosen are not stories that have literally objectively happened in the world.
Right. Besides Transformers.
Somewhere out in space, right? But is what the story's saying true?
Okay.
about reality,
About life, about ourselves.
about our exactly.
Okay.
And that's capital T truth. That's myth. Myth is truth put in a story. It's truth contained within a story.
So that's the redefined definition of myth.
That's redefining it for you.
Right,
for you.
Exactly.
That is
Yes.
the definition of myth, but your relationship to that word is changing.
Right.
Right. And C.S. Lewis is a great resource to read more about this way of seeing myth. Like he's done a lot of work on how to see myth. And I mean, a lot of writers, but Lewis is a great place to start. I recommend.
Yeah, and I say this for myself, but also anyone that might be struggling with this idea whenever we talk about myth and what we're saying and what we're meaning when we do.
No, it's good.
So this helps me, but hopefully it helps any of you guys that are out there listening and going, what are they talking about?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up because I think you're right. Sometimes we get lost in the language, and I think it's really important to remember that we're on a journey with all of these concepts. And, you know, we have this like long talks at the beach and at the house and as we're driving all these different places of just like how these stories serve as almost like anchor points for how we understand ourselves in this moment, how we understand the stories we find ourselves in. And that's what I love about all of these picks is I think each one of us, even if you didn't know it, Jason, when you picked One Flew, I think each of us picked stories that to us convey a level of truth that is very meaningful for where we are at right now in our lives.
Yes, I really agree with that. Like I said, the archetype of the jester is something I've been wrestling with because it's in times of crisis, it takes priority.
Yeah.
As a defense mechanism. And while it's helpful, it needs to take a back seat to the other strengths and the other proclivities that I have that are good.
Yeah.
It needs to be reined in and controlled and made to serve these. It cannot lead me anymore, or it can't. If it leads me, it's not in a sustainable way.
Yeah,
and that's what I really liked about this movie and what it visualized for me. And I think with the word myth, I think I lean towards legends as the word more, but same thing.
Yeah, very similar. And if you've been listening to this conversation and been thinking, "Wow, this is incredible. This is an incredible story. I wish I had this level of understanding on my own life story." Then that's what we're here for at All Things Narrative. We believe that everyone has a story that they're living out that's inside of them, just waiting to be told, whether it's through speaking, through writing, or even just for your own personal growth and development. We want to help bring that story out so that you can better understand how to communicate it and how to ultimately live it in the most meaningful ways possible. And storytelling by design helps us to live more meaningfully because stories are impacted with meaning. And I believe that your story matters and your life has meaning, worth, and value in it. And so being able to help you walk in that as much as possible. If it sounds interesting to you, then I'd love to connect with you. In the show notes here, we've got a link to All Things Narrative. And if you check out allthingsnarrative.com, that is my company that provides storytelling, education, and coaching, where you can learn more about stories like what you're doing on this podcast, but also take it a step further and get that extra coaching in order to learn more about your story and how to bring that to light. And so if that sounds interesting to you, then I offer a free consultation that acts as a discovery call where we can begin this journey in being able to bring your story out and provide that sense of clarity of the story you've been in and the story you want for your life. And so if that sounds interesting to you, then let's connect. Everything's in the show notes here. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to sit down with you, and I'd love to hear your story. So let's go ahead and start doing like final thoughts, like just kind of around the table, final takeaways from One Flew.
As we talked about it more, I don't hate Nurse Ratched as much. But no, just because there's a sense of compassion now that I actually have towards her. I don't think an extra scene would have helped because I feel like she are thinking about how she could have been is helpful because it's not a clear cut, oh, that's why she's like this. It's more like any reason can be the reason why she's like this point because that's reality. Yeah. We don't know actually how people really get to a point besides what we're seeing when we meet them in the moment.
Yeah, that's good.
But also, I think as well, what Jason was saying is how we need both the structure and we need the out of routine to really mesh things together, because there's going to be things that sometimes we need to step outside to go see things instead of what we only have on the inside of where we're at. We need to step out to actually see things, for pieces to be put together.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I really like this movie. It's about going against the system. So you already know you got it.
It's already a Joe move. Nick, how about you?
And Mr. Turkle.
Yeah,
Mr.
literally.
Turkle.
It's Turkle.
Go ahead.
I said in the beginning, I see myself in all the characters. The first ones I saw myself were the inmates. And this guy coming in to kind of just teach me how to live.
Yeah.
But then when they went on the boat and he starts leading these people, I saw myself teaching people how to live, because I did that.
Teaching them how to fish, yeah.
To fish, but no to live, though.
Oh, yeah,
They're out in the world.
Yeah.
And he's leading, and he's reckless and erratic, and the boat is I've left kids at the circus before. Like, crazy stuff had happened. I've had 10 people. He was out there with 10 of those guys I've been single with. It's fun, a lot of fun, but fearless, and just going.
Well,
chaotic.
Fishing is how to live, because it's teaching them to actually take something, put it out there, and get some, like, take something.
They got fish.
That's
and when they hold up the big fish, like, they got something out of life in that moment.
And there's a moment, and that scene made me think of the moment when we were working together, and I put you on the moped, and you were resistant. Because one, rationally, it wasn't the greatest idea, because he was on the moped with other people,
and the kid was,
and it was
as old as he was.
The spirit of McMurphy, like I felt like I was moving in that spirit, and that moment really did something for you. I believe it did something for you, and it did something for that boy, and it's just that fearlessness that is fun. There's a little gesture there too, but I did know what I was doing. And in that era, I was feeling a lot like McMurphy, and I was reckless, but I was helping people and hurting people.
Yeah.
And then that era switched, and I felt very much connected to Nurse Ratched, because I was not healthy, and I just needed to figure out that control somehow, because inside I didn't have any of it.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's cool to see different stages of my life in all of these characters. And I'm not, the archetypes don't pigeonhole you and say, like, you can't move in and out of them.
Deviate out of it.
So I've given my final thought. So Jason, why don't?
Did I have one more final thought?
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I was trying to find something from the book about myth, because there's one in here that was very clear to me that made me understand it, but I couldn't find it. But this is another one. It's abstract, so I'm not really going to explain it. I'm just going to say it. And it says, to see life as a poem and yourself participating in a poem is what the myth does for you.
Cool. That's awesome. So I've given my final thoughts. So Jason, why don't you close us out with, you chose this movie, you had never seen it, but what's your takeaways?
I've got a few.
Yeah.
And going back to the moped moment, I thought that was a really cool moment, because that really did do something for me, but there is also the structure of Nurse Ratched that I was operating in. But when those things came together, that was a really beautiful moment. And there was structure with, okay, we're going to do this with the kids. How are we going to do it? But anyways, one, I just want to give special shout outs to Danny DeVito.
Miss Martini, right?
Oh my gosh,
great character.
Hilarious.
Great character.
I bet a dime. I bet a dime.
It's not you can't bet a dime.
It's nothing. No, he was hilarious. His character, but also a great act. The actors in this movie were awesome. I feel like super believable. I thought I was really watching like a mental ward.
Yeah,
like phenomenal. Billy dying really, really hurt me. I didn't know that was coming. I like started actually crying for a good few seconds, and it reminds me of some people that I've lost, and also just hopes that I have for some of the kids that I work with, or really that I live life with, because I want the best for them. And just the idea of the trauma and fear just getting the better of them and snuffing their lives, it's just is a lot. And then McMurphy losing all of that joy and personality and just becoming a shell. Like, those were really hard moments, especially when Chief comes right in and says, I'm ready. I feel as big as a mountain, which is the first thing that McMurphy said about him in the movie.
So good.
And Chief had finally gotten to that part, but it was too late. McMurphy was just as small as his Chief's dad ended up being, when he was saying that he'd put the bottle in his mouth and he wouldn't suck out of it, it would suck out of him.
Mm-hmm.
But my hope is that I can make feel someone feel as big as Chief did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think those are just like the most important part of the movie to me was to be patient with people, because sometimes they can't make that choice. Chief became ready to make that choice, and McMurphy got him there. And no matter how big he was physically inside, he wasn't.
Even the message of you may not even see the result of your inspiration towards people. I think of that with the kids we work with. We may never see what they actually become after the fact, but the fact you planted that seed for them to be inspired, to go out.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this movie gave me a lot of confidence and energy and instilling that. And not even just kids, it's just like people, you guys, whoever I come into contact with. I'm very happy with this movie and what helped me visualize and kind of re-up on. And another thing, that just an interesting thing for me to wonder about later, and I told you guys, so I like birds. We'll get that over with. You know, we all know that. This is called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I don't know if y'all know about cuckoo birds, but
we don't.
some listeners might. I might not be alone.
Probably one more. It's all right.
You just want me in. No. But cuckoo birds do not make nests. They lay their eggs in the nests of other birds. Most of them, not all do this, but they parasite nests.
Gosh.
And so they don't have their own nest. I think this is a phrase to use for someone's crazy, but I just thought it was interesting. Like cuckoos, you can't fly over a cuckoo's nest. They don't have them. They lay their eggs in other nests, and then they dip.
Oh my God.
Some cuckoos it's not true for, but a lot of them are nest parasites.
So Randall
like
is putting his eggs
Ooh.
in you see what I'm doing? He's putting his eggs in someone else's baskets.
Someone else's nest.
Someone else's nest. Yeah.
Who, Nurse Ratched?
Yeah.
The ideas the ideas and what Nurse Ratched has implanted in the nest, in this institution, this guy comes in, not his, and he lays his own ideas, his own values, his own ways of living, and what the baby cuckoo bird does when it hatches, which is usually before the other eggs. If the cuckoo bird's egg is not removed, when it hatches, it will push out all the other eggs until it's the only bird left. He comes in and lays his ideas and his values and his ways of living in this institution. It pushes out the old ways of suppression. I mean, Nurse Ratched's still in there at the end of the day. She even kind of smiles lightly, but you can see more levity and even like more confidence in the way that the guys in the ward are living now. And so the old has been pushed out. Even though McMurphy's gone, something new is being raised and growing and developing in this institution. Wow.
Wow is right. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah, bird knowledge.
This is the perfect place to end on, because we didn't even know that we were going to be talking about the power of myth, but that's kind of how this week has unfolded.
Yeah.
And what better ending than for you taking that and literally giving us another level of understanding this that none of us could see. Yeah. So bravo, Jason. And thank you everyone for joining us for this journey. If you haven't heard the previous episodes where we've talked about these different stories and I guess the power of myth through them, go backwards and check out our episodes on Transformers, Pinocchio, The Green Knight. They all go really well together. And join us next month as we dive into a new theme and series of episodes. And wherever you're at, we hope that you are living a meaningful story and that you are finding films and stories that can help you wherever you're at on that journey. Until next time, take care. Thank you for listening to the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, produced by All Things Narrative. If you'd like to learn more about our coaching, workshops, events, please check out allthingsnarrative.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at All Things Narrative. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and tune in next time as we continue exploring the stories we love and the stories we live. Take care.